everybody, Tekking101 here, and welcome one and all. The time has finally arrived for the Reverie arc. That's right, we're no longer in the post-chapter arc between Totland and Reverie. No, we're kicking right into it. And from what it seems in this chapter, we're actually not going to have the Straw Hats appearing. I know that was a big thing that a lot of people were concerned about, like, well, how can you have an entire arc focused on Reverie where the main cast are not even present at Reverie? So I know a lot of people were thinking maybe the Straw Hats were going to crash Reverie or something like that. Oh, no. Luffy and the gang, they're still headed to Wano. I think this is Oda just kind of experimenting. The main character for this arc is pretty much going to be Sabo, which I'm perfectly fine with, and you should be too, as well as a lot of other returning cast members like Shirahoshi and Rebecca, Viola, Vivi. They're all going to be appearing, so don't worry, we're going to see a lot of familiar faces. And as you can see, I am extremely excited for Reverie. I got my scepter, I got my crown. You may have noticed I'm dressed a little bit more lavishly than usual. This is not my normal suit, but no, in full honesty, I'm actually going to be a groomsman at a wedding this weekend. One of my best friends is getting married, so I'll take this moment to say congratulations, Warren and Amber, and I'm renting this tuxedo from Men's Warehouse. It's like $250 for a 4-day rental. I am getting my damn money out of it, okay? So here we are. Let's dive into it. A lot of stuff to unpack in this chapter. One thing you gotta love about Oda is that on times where he has to take breaks, where like last week he seemed pretty exhausted, a little bit sick because he had to hurry up and basically get 2 chapters done for before Golden Week occurred. So that means chapter 903 and 904 were both done on a a time frame similar to 1 chapter, and that was like the worst time for Golden Week to occur because this was the the post-arc chapters where right after Totland, so we had to cover all this stuff in these 2 chapters that had to be done on a very short time window. So I think it's a miracle we got as much as we did. So Oda had to take a break, but he kind of makes up for it because there's a lot of stuff to see in this chapter. So let's cut right to the cover page. We see the continuing adventures of Orlumbus the Adventurer, living his pirate life. And I guess we're getting a timetable here, like this is what Orlumbus's day is. At like 6 a.m. you rise from your sleep and you fold your pajamas. Okay, well, hey, he takes his job very seriously. He is a pirate, after all. Or I guess an adventurer. See, that's the thing. Last chapter, he was kind of giving his resignation over, so maybe now he's resigning from just being an adventurer and just being a full-on pirate. Don't know if there's much of a difference there, but there is now. Also, in the background of Orlumbus's room, I was noticing a lot of globes, and a lot of maps, and a lot of cool little knickknacks, paddywhacks back there. So I was, like, zooming in to see if we could see anything, useful, little Easter eggs maybe Oda was dropping on us. Because as we all know, kids, geography is everything. From what I can gather, that particular map that we have such a clear view of, that's not actually a map of the world. It's more of just like maybe a map of one particular island or something. But as for the actual globes themselves, I looked, I really couldn't see anything on there. The only thing a little weird about the globes is that they're designed to turn 2 different directions instead of just, around. They can also turn this way, which I guess makes sense if you're a experienced, cartographer or an adventurer. You need to see the globe a bunch of different angles, I suppose. But yeah, I really don't know where his story is going from here, because it started off with just, like, there's really no narrative, it started off with him and his fleet, and then now he's, he turned in his resignation, so I guess he's living the life of a pirate, but I guess we're just going to go through his different, events through his day now. Like, at 6 a.m. he folds his pajamas and wakes up, and then at 8 a.m. he has a nice, hearty, balanced breakfast, and then we cut to, like, high noon where he's in the middle of battle with an enemy pirate ship. He's like, yeah, fire the cannonballs, hits the mainsail, kill everything with a pulse, bam, Admiral Killer Bowling! And then we cut to 7 p.m. where he's having a nice bath, to wipe off all the gunpowder and all the grime that's on you. And then he goes to bed at 9 p.m. sharp because he has to be all energized for the next day. You got to get your 8 hours in. Like I said, a lot of stuff to unpack, and we start off with the reveal of the new Marine HQ, or the new Marineford as it's called. Remember, Marineford is just like the name of the town that surrounds Marine HQ back in the Paradise half of the Grand Line, but considering that this is now the new Marine HQ, they titled the area New Marineford, and it does look a little different, and we've seen this place before, just in, like, I think we saw it the first time when Kizaru was giving that report on Edward Weevil, or he was getting the the report read to him. We saw it, but only different, like, certain, panels, like certain angles. Here we get to see it in its full scope, and it is huge. It's a little different of a design from the original Marineford. That one was more of like a traditional Japanese pagoda. This one actually looks like a more practical fort. It's like rounded in shape, and it has cannons, stretching out all over it, a giant border wall, gun turrets. Now, the original Marine HQ did have some cool stuff. They had the gun turrets, and they also had that encircling wall over the bay, which was pretty cool. But in terms of like the actual building itself, I think it was more of an aesthetic thing as a symbol rather than something that was like actually taking action, because you figure, what kind of freaking pirates would be so suicidal as to actually just actively attack the headquarters of the Marines? So the old school Marine HQ probably didn't get a lot of action directly until the War of the Best, until Whitebeard rocked up, and then they were like, okay, if we're gonna rebuild this thing, let's make sure to add maybe a few more gun turrets to the actual building. And they explained that after the War of the Best, Marineford did suffer heavy battle damage, and they did repair it, but I think after Akainu took over, he was pretty much just like, okay, we're moving everything to the new world. I want to show those Yonko who's boss, and we're gonna modify. I'm sure G1 was modified a little bit to make it more, like imposing, right? The crazy thing that I love is the giant arches behind the HQ, and I know they're supposed to be indicative of the design of the Marine symbol, like the sigil of the Marines, this thing, that's what they are. But looking at them, I just can't help but think that, like, the Marines are now sponsored by McDonald's. Am I the only one that's getting that? Like, a little bit, okay? In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if people keep walking up to the damn thing and trying to order, like, excuse me, is this the McDonald's? And Akainu comes out, like, what do you want? I'm like, I want a large Big Mac with, Sprite, please. Like, damn it, get the hell off my yard! All right, here you go. I mean, he's a nice guy. Anyway, we actually get a little map area, an overview of the Red Line. So we see the old Marine HQ. Now it's currently G1. Then we see Marineford, and of course, Marijwa is on top of the Red Line. But the thing that made me super excited, maybe not you, and I understand I'm weird, is this thing. This thing right here. That sort of elevator-looking contraption. We're gonna find out more about what that's all about in this chapter. But I lost my shiz when I saw that, because I'm like, oh my god, are they finally gonna explain how you get from the sea level of Paradise all the way up to Marijwa? Are they finally going to explain that? That's a big deal for me, because you have to understand, and I've mentioned this before, there's no conventional flying machines in the One Piece world. And when I say conventional flying machines, allow me to clarify. There are no airplanes. There are no helicopters. There are no dirigibles. There are no space shuttles. Well, I guess a space shuttle isn't really conventional, but you know what I mean. There are things like the Maxim and Aru's Arc, which are very rare exceptions. Not everybody could just make that. You got things like the flying fish, which are not machines. They are fish. They can't fly very far, and they can't fly very high. They need to go through the water first to get a head start. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, how the hell do ordinary people just get into Marijwa? Because you figure Marijwa is a city. All right, people are coming and going all the time. People are coming and going all the time. So there has to be a reliable method to go from all the way on top of the Red Line, which we still don't know how high the Red Line is entirely. We know that from the Red Line to Fishman Island, that's 10,000 meters down. From, like, sea level all the way down to Fishman Island. That's 10,000 meters, right? But we don't know how far it is from Fishman Island all the way up to Marijwa. So we don't know how far it is. It could only be maybe a few thousand meters. It might be another 10,000 meters. We don't know. So I'm like, is there a staircase? Is there an elevator? And we find out about that in this chapter, and I just love it. And I'm going to go into a whole discussion about bubble theory. And if you're not into that, I'll throw up a time code or something. But we need to talk about this. Yes, it's important. Anyway, what's Sakazuki up to? Oh, he's yelling. That's such a surprise. What the hell are you talking about? Fujitora's in Marijwa. I thought I told him to not come back unless he got the straw hats and that law, damn bastard. You can imagine that Akainu yells a lot in his position. You can imagine people are just walking by his office all the time and just hearing him scream, like, I thought I told him I wanted a Danish with my coffee, damn it! You know, you just kind of get used to it after a while. It's like, oh, he's going off again. Yeah, it sucks. He's actually getting a report read to him by Captain T-Bone, who's probably not a captain anymore. He's probably been promoted since the last time we saw him. T-Bone, the ship cutter. Remember that guy? From what I hear, he despises crooked men and crooked swordplay. But, yeah, he's the one that was escorting Robin on the Puffing Tom to Ennie's lobby, and Zoro had that. We thought it was going to be that really intense moment. And I was really excited because there was like a really ominous scene where they're on the Rocket Man and they see that Sea King cut in half. And Zoro, he takes off his bandana and he puts it on and he takes out his swords. I have Kitetsu right here. And he's like, there's somebody waiting on this railway. Somebody that can cut Sea Kings in half. I better get ready. And we think it's going to be a really cool fight. But in the next episode, he just like cuts him as he's moving by and then that's it. And so that was kind of lame. But, you know, T-Bone was always kind of a neat character. He kind of looks like a zombie, honestly, the way he's designed. He's not really, but he looks like one. And I believe we saw him at Marineford along with all the other, you know, big-time Navy officers. But since the time skip, we haven't seen him, so I like to think he's been promoted. Anyway, he's delivering a report that Fujitora has arrived in Marijua. And that pisses Akainu off because he told him, hey, don't come back to any Navy base in the entire world unless you've captured the Straw Hats or Law. Like, you've taken one of their heads after what happened at Dressrosa for you to repent, for you daring to admit that the Navy was wrong. However, T-Bone is reporting, he's like, well, sir, we couldn't really stop him because technically Marijua isn't a Navy base. It's the Holy Land. It's where the Tenryubito are. It's where the Gorosei are based, but it is technically not a naval base. And so Fujitora's like, so Akainu's like, that's just semantics. What are you doing, you freaking idiots? And everyone's just like, you know, he's yelling again. And I like this one scene, though, where T-Bone was like, well, what are we supposed to do? And honestly, I think T-Bone just kind of wanted to say, dude, he can manipulate gravity. What are we gonna do about that? Fujitora can go pretty much anywhere he wants, you know? You piss him off, he'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be here. He unsheaths his Gravisword, or whatever you want to call that, and brings down a freaking meteorite upon you. You're not gonna argue with that guy. You'll let him dock wherever he wants to freaking dock. You hear me, Doc? Anyway, Sengoku sticks his head in, very briefly, and he states, you know, hey, being a fleet admiral isn't as easy as you thought it would be. It's a pretty stressful job, right? And everyone just, you know, T-Bone's looking shocked at him, and Akainu just kind of yells over at him. He's like, would you just shut up? You're not even a fleet admiral anymore, you doddering old. You're almost retired. So, I feel like this is an interesting dynamic, you know? It's like the personal lives of the Marine officers, you know? So, does, like, Sengoku have an office located right next door to Sakazuki? Because that would be hilarious. And he just, you know, Sakazuki's in there trying to be a fleet admiral, and, paperwork. And then, you know, Sengoku just walks by eating some rice crackers. He's like, hey, you need some help with that? I'd love to, but I got a golf game at 6. Get out of here! He's throwing freaking staplers at him or whatever. It's just office politics, really. Sakazuki then asks, you know, if there's anybody else that's going to Marijua, and T-Bone reports that it's actually Admiral Ryokogyu, or Admiral Greenbull is going to be present as well, so don't get too excited, we don't get to see him in this chapter. Well, we do, but we don't. See, I have a theory that Greenbull actually consumed the silhouette fruit, so now he's actually perpetually in silhouette. You'll never know what he really looks like. But yeah, we do get to see him, and hey, up until this point, we only saw him in silhouette. We had no idea how he talked or anything like that, but we do find out that in this chapter. So there are a few more hints as to the mystery of the Green Bull, but we're not quite there yet. Oda can't reveal all of his chickies at once, you know what I mean? So anyway, we cut over to that location I previously mentioned, how you get from sea level up to Marijua. It's known as the Red Port, obviously because of the red line, and you see this cool design there, the world government's logo stenciled all over the side of the red line there, and we also see some hustle muscle mangrove trees there, the same that are present on the ocean floor and at Sabaody. So this is actually how they get up there. And also going back a little bit to New Marineford, there were bubbles all over that area too. So the same climate that exists at Sabaody exists here at New Marineford, which is located on the opposite side of the Grand Line, you know? It's interesting exactly how these climates, you know, pop into existence. And for a statement here on bubble theory, I will now lay it down for you. If you're not interested in bubbles, if you're not interested in the red port, you can just skip to this time code. But I am, so let's go through it. This confused me a little bit, I'll be honest with you, because I'm like, okay, they use bubbles to go from sea level all the way up to the Holy Land. Now, the problem with that is, if you go over to, remember at Sabaody, you had a bunch of these mangrove trees that made the archipelago, and there were bubbles all over the place. The trees, after they exhale oxygen, they're coated with that resin, so the oxygen gets coated and then becomes a bubble that pops out. And they're durable enough that you can ride on them. And remember when Luffy was hopping all over the bubbles? But after you leave the climate of Sabaody, which was not much higher than the tree line, you get a little bit higher than the tree line, and then the bubbles all pop. And that was with a bunch of the mangrove trees. There was like, you know, like, what, 70 or 80 freaking trees or groves at Sabaody. There was a lot of them. Bubbles also exist constantly underwater. So as long as you're underwater, the bubbles will exist. And we've seen that because you get your ship coated at Sabaody, and then you go underwater. And the second that you come out underwater, like when the Straw Hats popped out of the new world into the new world, the bubbles immediately pop. So as long as you're underwater, you're good, and as long as you're in that special climate, you're good. The problem that I have with this red port is you only see a few of the Hustle Muscle mangrove trees. There's only like 2 that we really get to see here. And yet, these bubbles, this climate is durable enough that the bubbles can actually go all the way from sea level to Marijua without popping, which is a lot higher than what they went at Sabaody. So here is my theory. Remember how they talked about where all of the mangrove trees originate, the mother tree Eve, which is, you know, paired with the treasure tree Adam, you know, get it, Adam and Eve, Oda's so clever. The root of that tree, Eve, is located at, you know, the bottom of the sea at Fishman Island, and that's actually how they can get not only air down there, but also sunlight. So, from what we understand, and of course Fishman Island is located right at the bottom of the red line, in that little hole there. So from what I could gather, you have the mother tree Eve that has its roots right around Fishman Island, and we didn't really get to see the mother tree in its, like just how big the damn thing was in its huge scope. We only got to see little, you know, fragments of it. But we can imagine that that tree goes all the way from the ocean floor, all the way maybe even on top of Marijua. Maybe it cuts right through the red line. I don't know how it works. But because that's the mother tree, and because that's like the one that's the boss of all of the mangrove trees, that climate is especially unique. So as long as you're near the actual red line where that mother tree Eve is springing into existence, you know, and all the other, maybe there's other areas too, not just Sabaody. There might be other archipelagos made out of the same stuff. There might be other mangrove trees just popping out all over the area. I'll throw up like a little map just to show you where Sabaody and these other locations might just be the branches of the tree stretching out, but the main trunk of the tree is located somewhere in the central part of the red line or around it, and that's why the bubbles can go all the way from the sea level all the way up to the Holy Land. So that's my idea on how this works. I put a lot more thought into how these, you couldn't have just left it alone. You can just say, oh, they use bubbles. That's how they get out to Marijua. Okay, well, that's all there is to it. No, I had to think about it like, okay, well, how come these bubbles could go higher than these bubbles? There has to be a reason. But anyway, the way that they actually do this is through a series of gondoliers, or gondolas, get it? Because I just made a video about Venice the other day, and I was talking about the gondolas of Venice. And kind of the same thing here, except combining the words bubble with gondola. Sorry, I hit Sabo's pipe over here. But, yeah, that's how they go. And keep in mind, it's not just royalty. You got regular citizens, too. I would imagine as long as you're not a pirate, you're a regular law-abiding citizen of the One Piece world, and you want to go see the Holy Land, you could probably get a pass if you have enough money. You could probably get a pass and go up on these gondolas and see the Holy Land. Maybe get a tour of the area, you know, kind of treat it like the Vatican City of our world, you know? I don't know, but yeah, so that's how they do it. That's the legal way to cross the red line, as opposed to getting your ship coated, risking certain death, going through the hole and popping out the other end in the new world. And remember, this method, though, you have to leave your ships behind. And that's what got Frankie all pissed off back when they were learning about how to cross the red line, you know, so that you can't obviously take your ships with you on the gondolas. They're not, you know, big enough for that. So, yeah, that's me ranting and raving about bubbles for like 5 minutes. Okay, so the kings of various kingdoms are arriving, or I guess not just the kings, because we got some queens too, are arriving at the red port to head up to the Holy Land land. So the first king we get to see is King Beer the Sixth from the Ryugu Kingdom. It's Russia. That's what the joke is. Along with Princess Matrio, who's like a series of princesses that are like a Russian nesting doll that, you know, pops out of one of them. You know, it's a cute design. I like it. Personally, I would go with this Russian princess rather than this Russian princess, but, you know, just me. Also, King Beer the Sixth, you know, I thought, considering if we're gonna go Russian with it, why not just make him like King Vodka the Sixth, you know? A lot of heavy drinkers up in Russia. So anyway, next we have someone from the land of the Bollywood Kingdom. I want to say Bollywood because that's a place that actually exists in India. It's the Indian equivalent of Hollywood, so it's obviously a play of Hollywood, you know, or Bollywood. Maybe it's both, and but it's obviously America because the king is literally just named King Hamburger. You know, I bought this today because McDonald's seems to be coming up. You know, you got the McDonald's arches behind, you know, the Marine base, and also you got King Hamburger. So I ordered a quarter pounder, but they messed up my order and they gave me McNuggets instead. Now, I wasn't upset about that because I was starving today after work. But, yeah, I just wanted to tell you, I can't pull out a quarter pounder. I don't have it. And next we see Queen Morona? I don't know. She's hot, she's got big boobs, and she's has some wine that she's twirling. So, yeah, I don't know. I see she's Queen of Morona. So, I don't know, Morocco, I guess, maybe. I see the attractive woman and the wine, and I don't know why, but my mind immediately goes to France. Possibly Sweden, although I don't know if Sweden is known too much for their wine, but maybe that's with the reference there. It's okay, though, because the next king is a lot more obvious where Oda's basing him off. We have the king of the Shishano Kingdom, King Taco. His name is King Taco. Alright. You know, I feel like there's gonna be some problems with this. But, I mean, hey, you're naming the guy based off of America King Hamburger, so I guess at least it's following a theme when he's naming the king of a country that's obviously based off of Mexico, King Taco, but okay, so he shows up and he's wearing a poncho and a sombrero with a cactus sticking out of it. It looks cool anyway. If you're going to kneel while you're alive, then at least die standing, which is the words from a famous, hold on a second, I'm not totally looking this up. From a famous Mexican revolutionary, Emiliano Zapito, yeah, okay, so that's where that's from. Neat. So that's it for the kings and queens that are just arriving. We don't really know much more about them except for their designs and where they're from. A lot of these places we've never even heard of before. So they might be relevant to the Reverie in the same way that some of the Underworld members were relevant to the Tea Party. You know, like Stussy and Morgans obviously were. Other people like Peklo really didn't do anything during the Tea Party, so I'm sure some of these people won't really not do anything either. Just to kind of fill the gap. But the next arrival that we see is a familiar face, and that is the princes and the king and the princess of the Ryugu Kingdom. Princess Shirahoshi arrives on the surface for the first time in her life, and she's awesome, and you see Neptune there, and he's rocking the regal attire. Keep in mind, Neptune pretty much just looks like Santa Claus, so it's always really funny to see him, you know, like imagine Santa Claus in a tuxedo, you know, that's what you get there. You got Fukaboshi, and you got Ryoboshi, and Mamboshi there, and everyone is obviously, as you can imagine, flipping their shit over Shirahoshi because she is regarded as one of the most, if not the most beautiful person in the world, rivaling even Hancock, and everyone is just, you know, going immediately gaga for her. It also might be because she... Maybe button up your shirt a little bit, Shirahoshi. I mean, come on, you're making these people go crazy down there, but whatever. She's probably still amazed, because this is like the first time she's been at the surface, like, ever. She's like, oh my god, that's the sun! It's crazy! And she's, Garp was actually the one that escorted them up from the seafloor. And it's interesting that he's still listed as a Vice Admiral officially, because both Garp and Sengoku apparently stepped down, but Sengoku was the one, he actually had his title changed to General Inspector. Garp went to be just an instructor, kind of like a motivational tool, because he's the hero of the Marines that brought in Roger, at least from their perspective. He brought in Roger. Roger turned in himself, but yeah. So, yeah, from their perspective, though, I mean, he's still a Vice Admiral. I guess the title is maybe just a little bit more honorary than it is, like, official. But for Reverie, I guess he decided to help out because Garp is, you know, he's a stand-up guy, he's a stand-up fella, so he's just munching on some crackers, escorting the princes and Shirahoshi and Neptune to the Bondola to, you know, carry them to the Holy Land, and they seem pretty cheerful and everyone's happy. We see a bunch of photographers there arriving. One of them is Attach, who was the photographer back at Water 7, one of the official photographers of the world government of the Marines. He's the guy that takes a lot of these pictures for the wanted posters. Not all of them, because, you know, he can't be more than one place at a single time. So, you know, the Marines probably enlist a bunch of photographers that are just, like, hidden in the crowd. They're not supposed to, you know, attack the pirates or anything. They're just there to take pictures. So you also see Morgan's there as well. And he's really happy. He's falling for the Mermaid Princess along with everybody else. And there's this really funny scene when Garp is escorting Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi is so impressed by everything in the outside world. And, of course, she's been told from Luffy, like, what a forest is, and that's one of her dreams, is to visit an actual forest. And so she just points to a tree, and she's just like, is that a fabled forest? And Garp is like, no, that's just a tree. Oh, is that a fabled forest? I'm like, oh, that's just grass. What's that? That's moss. What's that? That's just another human being. That doesn't happen, but, you know, she's just, like, pointing at everything and being so excited, so... Okay, good job, Shirahoshi. We kind of have to feel for her hair. First time on the surface, you know, it's a lot to take in. What with the sky and all. So anyway, next we say, holy crap! What kind of horrific being is that? I mean, there's been a lot of screwed up creatures in One Piece, guys, but I think this takes the cake. Ah! Oh, it's Stelly. Oh, I guess not Stelly, it's Stelly. God freaking damn it, L's and R's in Japan. Okay, I'm just gonna keep calling him Stelly, because I've been literally calling him that, and it's probably pronounced that way anyway, because of the whole L and R thing, so, but that's actually how it's spelled, so, okay, yes. This is King Stelly of the Goa Kingdom. He was brought into the family after Sabo defected, and apparently, according to him, his parents met a mysterious death. He probably killed them, and now he is the new king, and you see his queen there, Queen Nantucket, or Nantuckwinette. It's a play off Antoinette, Lady Antoinette, so yeah, and yeah, I think I'm gonna give, you know the voice I'm gonna give Stelly, I think you'll all approve of it, let's just dive right in. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Well, you know who I am, don't you? And so Garp is just like, nope, but your face is ugly as sin, so could you please get out of mine? So King Stelly goes on to state that he is the king of the Goa Kingdom. Oh, and Garp, you know, you are from Goa as well, therefore you are my subject, so you must listen to my every whim. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Yeah, that's actually probably how he talks. And his appearance hasn't really changed much since he was a kid. He's a very uptight, very arrogant, very just absolutely just bred into royalty his entire life, knows pretty much nothing about the outside world or how real people actually interact or how they talk, and just the fact of how, like, probably has any, and nobody's probably ever said no to this kid his entire life, you know? So the fact that Garp, like, straight up just sasses the crap out of him is great, because he's terrified of him. He's like, what? How would someone dare talk to me like that? How rude! You know, he takes out his handkerchief like, oh, back, you fool! The gods attack him! You know, that kind of shit, probably. So, I want to say that Stelly is no real threat, but he's an idiot, and he's an idiot that has massive amounts of power at his disposal. So, yeah, and by the way, when I say that he killed his parents, which, by the way, Sabo's folks are now dead, so I guess that's sad-ish. I don't think Sabo's gonna be, you know, shedding any tears at night. But they're dead now, so okay. I don't think he's the one that personally killed them. He probably hired a hitman or something, and he probably didn't even do it himself. He probably had, like, one of his underlings hire a hitman to do it, so yeah. But their deaths are probably on Stelly's hands. So we get a little bit of a few fun facts, a little trivia about Stelly that Oda just kind of lays out for us, in case you don't remember him, because he did only appear in like a few chapters way back when. I think Sabo only met him like one time, really, when Sabo left and went into the Gray Terminal. Then he got brought back, and then they're like, oh, we adopted this kid with a bowl cut because we thought you were dead. And then Sabo left like again almost immediately, so probably didn't really get a lot of brotherly bonding time with Stelly, so, but yeah, we get little notes about his existence and what happened to his folks and everything like that. Garp tells him that his face looks annoying, and the plan that Stelly had, because he figured, well, Garp, he's this Navy hero, he's a member of the Goa Kingdom, and by the way, we find out Dragon, Luffy, Ace, and Garp, they're all from the Goa Kingdom, and I think it was implied, or at least strongly implied, that, Dragon was part of the Goa Kingdom. I think he did call it his homeland, but I don't remember. In any case, we get it confirmed now. So a lot of troublemakers come from this place that Morgans is mentioning, even though it's kind of like a backwater kingdom tucked away in the corner of the East Blue. A lot of troublemakers seem to flourish from the Goa Kingdom, yeah. Even Luffy, because Fuchsia was technically part of it, but it was kind of just like off to the side, so no one really paid attention to it, but it was technically part of the Goa Kingdom. So anyway, yeah, Stelly's plan, though, is to let Garp, like, basically treat him like he's the awesome king he is, and maybe put in a word to the Tenryubito at the Reverie, because Stelly wants to become a world noble as well. Can you just do that? Like, how does that work? Do you just fill out an application? The way I understood it, the Tenryubito were the direct descendants of the original 20 families that founded the world government. So you can't exactly just apply to be one of them. I mean, maybe if you trace his roots back far enough, maybe, because Stelly is not actually part of the family, because it was King Outlook, right? That was the guy, that was Sabo's father, who adopted Stelly, Outlook the Third. So maybe if you trace their roots far back enough, you get it to a Tenryubito origin, but I'm just like, I'm so confused by this. Like, does Stelly maybe he just doesn't know, which that would make perfect sense too, because, Stelly's an idiot. So he could be like, the Tenryubito are at the top. Well, I have to be at the top too, of course. So, yeah, I'm gonna do that. So anyway, yeah, Garp just tells him, wow, you're a real scumbag, aren't you? And he flips backwards and falls down. He's like, once again, probably the first time in his entire life he was talked to like this. This guy is so scary. And then Neptune grabs him, picks him up, and he's like, ho, it's okay. Are you all right there, King of the Goa Kingdom? And Neptune is a nice guy. We find out that he's actually referred to as the Paladin of the Sea. So he's a very noble, kind of chivalrous dude. So, Neptune just kind of, I'll help you to your feet there, King of Goa Kingdom. And then he turns around and sees all the fishmen, all of, not just Neptune, but also all of his entourage and his guards and everything. The Ammo Knights are around him. And so he's like, what are these these are those half fish, the shark people. Oh, get them away from me. There's some horrible disease you get from them. So, can someone please kick this guy in the face or punch him in the balls? Either or. Anyway, yeah, we do get some interesting expressions from him, and he just looks horrible. And as Garp stated, yeah, he is a scumbag. But going on to more impressive views, quite literally, the Neptune family arrives in Bondola, and they head up to the Marijois, and you have Garp. Garp does not accompany them at that point. He's just kind of seeing them off, and he's smiling, because he had a fun time with them, apparently. And they're like, bye, Luffy's grandpa. So they probably had a discussion about that from the seafloor all the way to the surface about Luffy. So I'm kind of interested in knowing what they talked about, but Garp probably didn't give them any important details. He probably just, oh yeah, I'm his grandpa. He ran off to be a pirate, but whatever, he's happy. Causing a lot of problems these days, what can you do? So, yeah, that was pretty neat, though. And for, properly, I mean, obviously she's seen the sun before this, while she was, heading to the Red Port and everything, but now now she's getting a full view of it. We're heading up in the gondola alongside the red line, and they get this huge, just open view of the ocean and of the sky. And Shirahoshi's like, "Father, it's the sun!" And you see this beautiful scene where the sunlight hits her in the face. And I can imagine how they're going to handle this in the anime. Probably that really epic music is going to play in the background of like whimsy and wonder. Da 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 da. You know, and that's going to be pretty cool. And I feel for Shirahoshi. And keep in mind, the reason why we're kind of focusing on Shirahoshi a lot is once again, the Straw Hats do not appear in this arc, so we have to have kind of like our de facto main cast. Sabo is going to be there, but also it's going to be Shirahoshi. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few chapters, I have no idea how long Reverie will be, but in the next few chapters, we get, you know, focuses on Vivi and a focus on Rebecca and maybe a scene where they all come together and meet. Something like that. Also, Dalton and Kureha, who are arriving as well. I want to see Wapple, just to see the interaction between Dalton and Wapple. I think that's going to be great. A lot of the other kingdoms we haven't seen yet, so yeah, we kind of have to make our own little cast here, but I think it can work out fairly well. So, all of her brothers and her father are obviously very excited to it. You know, Mamboshi's like, "Let's everybody a mambo!" I like Mamboshi. I think he's the youngest of the sons, but you just gotta like him. I mean, hey, your name sounds kind of like Mambo, so make that your character trait. Everybody mambo tonight! And also, really quick thing, a side note about the gondola, is it's not just the bubble that, you know, lifts them up. They're also connected to a cable, like a guide wire, and also some propellers. Maybe that's just to cut down, like obviously the guide wire is to make sure they don't float off into the ocean, they just keep going up. But, you know, have propellers there too, so it's more than just a bubble. But anyway, now we cut over to the Holy Land proper, and we see two figures just hanging out on a veranda, just on a nice little like grassy area, just enjoying a little outdoor picnic. One of them is Fujitora, one of the admirals, obviously Purple Tiger, Wisteria Tiger, hanging out eating some ramen. And then the other figure is, in fact, Ryugu, the Green Bull. Okay, now, how much of this chapter is left? I just want to check really quick. Not much after this. There's like one more scene after this, and that's pretty much it. Okay. So, the first thing to bring up here is that we get to see Ryugu in his silhouette. We get to see him a little bit more, and I'm going to assume that he's a guy. I mean, it would have been really cool to get a female admiral, and he or she still might be a woman, we don't know, but from the way they're talking, they're saying, you know, apparently Ryugu is on a fast, and he hasn't eaten anything for 3 years, and he's an admiral without having eaten anything for 3 years, so, oh man, I'm gonna have to sit down at the old theorizing chair and come up with one for that. But also he states that, "Rah-ha-ha-ha," that's his laughter style, "Rah-ha-ha-ha, if it was a pretty girl, I would eat in a flash." So, I'm going to assume it's a guy. And we get to see their hair a little bit more. Last time we saw like wavy hair, but now the hair seems to be rather long and falling in front of their face. But the more important thing here, the vastly more important thing here than Green Bull just being a fasting admiral, is that Fujitora, after he left Dressrosa, and after he was told that he could no longer stop at a Navy base, he actually went to go see Vegapunk. Yeah. And he states that while he didn't actually get to see Vegapunk in person, he got to see the new invention that he was working on. And he was so impressed by this that he states outright that the era of the 7 Warlords will definitely be coming to an end soon. So what he's stating, or we no longer need them, basically. Because Fujitora is a big, he dislikes the warlord system. He hates the idea of hiring on pirates as, like, legal privateers and shit. Obviously, after what happened with Doflamingo, we see how this shit could go south pretty quick. So he arrived at Reverie to basically state why they don't need the warlord system anymore, why they need to get rid of it. Poor Buggy, too. I mean, he just... but anyway, yeah, and the reason that he's going to make his point is he's probably going to stand before the kings and the Tenryubito and the Gorosei and everybody at the World Summit, and he's going to be like, "Listen, I was just at Vegapunk's lab, and his new invention It is way better than anything that the Warlords could ever give us. That's why you need to abolish them right now and just treat them as normal pirates. We don't need them anymore. That time for that era has passed. So I think the big question on everybody's mind now is, what the hell is Vegapunk's invention? He already invented basically a giant, expansive army of Terminators that could shoot lasers out of their hands and mouth. So what could he have come up with this time? Is it a nuke? Did Vegapunk invent a nuclear bomb? I mean, like, you might laugh at that, like, no, it's One Piece. He's not going to invent a nuclear bomb. Like, okay, well, you know how, like, in Hunter x Hunter, they don't call it a nuclear bomb, but the poor man's rose is a nuclear bomb. They don't call it radiation, they call it poison, but it's still radiation. It might be something like that. I mean, if it's powerful enough that all of the Warlords together and their might are not even needed anymore, and like Mihawk, Hancock, you have, well, Law was taken out, or Weevil, although Weevil might have been taken out as well, because we see the wanted ad in the paper a few chapters back. My point is, all of the combat strength of the Warlords together, this new invention is either equal to or greater than that. So, I have no idea what that could be. It might be a flying machine. If Vegapunk invented like a B-17 bomber or something like that, or some fighter jet, or a freaking stealth plane, or something like that, that would probably fit, and you could just drop cannonballs and explosives from those things. If they invented a flying machine, that would be it. I would definitely buy that being a pretty damn impressive invention to outstrip the Warlord system at that point, because you would then have an Air Force in One Piece where no other, flying machines existed. So that would be cool. I have no idea. Let me know about your thoughts below. I have to sit down and think of like top 5 inventions that Vegapunk could have created. That's probably what the video is going to be titled. So just hang on tight for that. All right. So now we cut back to Kamabaka very briefly, where we see a few other members of the Revolutionary Army. So Bello Betty's there, and she's talking to Koala, and they mention that they're not really trying to declare war against the entire government. Really, rather, they're going to be declaring war against the Celestial Dragons, the Tenryubito, directly. And you know what? That's kind of a good point to make, and it is a distinction, I should say, because if they just collapse the entire government at once, you're going to have anarchy at that point, because this is a system that's been in place for 800 years, ever since the Void Century. And if the entire government just collapses overnight, there's no other system set up. I mean, it's going to be anarchy. The pirates really would own the entire planet at that point. So instead, I think what they're trying to do is that they're going to be aiming to take down the Tenryubito or replace the Tenryubito in the shadows. Maybe in such a way that the general public might not know about it. So they're like, the Tenryubito, they like slaughter all of them behind the scenes, and then they bring other people in to actually act as the true heads of the world government, and the rest of the world is just none the wiser. The rest of the world is still in belief that the Tenryubito are controlling everything, but in reality another group took over, and they start steering the world government slowly but surely to the next world. Because it's not like the average citizen is going to be seeing the Gorosei very often. The Gorosei might also have to be removed for this process to actually work, or they're going to be seeing the Tenryubito very often. So this process could work. They're targeting the Tenryubito directly. That's who they're waging war with, not the entire government. The world government has its major problems, but it's not like everybody working for the world government is a bad person. Like, Sengoku was not a bad person. I'm sure Kong is really not a bad person the same way that the Tenryubito are bad people. You know what I'm talking about? Even maybe the Gorosei are not all that way. So we'll see how this goes. The final scene of the chapter is now we have Stelly's group that's being ridden up in the gondola, and he's next to King Hamburger, and he's freaking out. He's like, oh my god, it's so high! Oh my god, it rattled a little bit, we're all gonna die! And so King Hamburger is just like, because this is the first time Stelly's been at Reverie. Hamburger's probably been here multiple times. He's used to this. And he's like, you're so loud, King of the Goa Kingdom, shut up! And then Stelly mentions, I saw a giant with a pitchfork pop out of the mountain! And that's obviously Morley, who we saw last chapter, but we don't get to see him here. It's just that Stelly mentions he saw him, and I guess his devil fruit allows him to infiltrate the rock work of the Red Line, so that's very important that he could just gain access to Marijwa whenever he wants, pretty much. And so right as this is happening, a murder of crows, Karasu, arrive at the Bondola as well, and they're not, like, they're worried that they might pop the bubble, but at the same time, yeah, what would happen if that thing popped halfway up? Okay, but anyway, yeah, they're worried that the crows might be popping the bubble, but it's okay because an armed guard next to Stelly reassures them. It's like, oh, don't worry about them. Crows have never popped the bubbles before. You're safe with me, King Stelly. And we see the last scene of the chapter, and the armed guard is actually Sabo. Now, Stelly probably completely forgot about Sabo at this point. Like I said, he didn't know Sabo for very long. He's thought to be dead by much of the world. Well, here's the thing. People know that Sabo is the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, but how many people know Sabo's origins from the Goa Kingdom? That's what I'm trying to get across here. So Stelly's probably not going to recognize Sabo. Sabo might not even really recognize Stelly that much from his childhood. He might know, oh, Stelly, yeah, that's that kid that my dad took in, right? Yeah, you're the king of the Goa Kingdom. Okay, sure. But he's not going to like, oh, yeah, I do remember you from my childhood, all those fun times we had. There are no fun times. Oh, my parents are dead? Well, that sucks. And anyway, but it is kind of dangerous because people do know his face. He does have a wanted poster. People know what the second in command of the Revolutionary Army to the Chief of Staff looks like. So Sabo's kind of treading on water here, but, you know, he's got the night thing. He could always cover his face up with that, and he's just, you know, one of the normal guards of the place, so yeah. I don't know how this is going to go down, because Morley is obviously infiltrating the place, and Sabo is infiltrating. Betty is back at Kamabaka, so she's not going to be part of this. Karasu's obviously there as well. Don't know where Lindbergh is at. So, we're going to have at least Karasu and Morley and Sabo infiltrating the Reverie, maybe Lindbergh, and they're just going to probably, we don't know where Dragon's at either, so, you know, put a dime on that. We don't know where that's at. But it's probably just going to be them that are going to show up maybe at the end of Reverie, because I still want to see some politics. I still want to see some discussions at the table about, like, current events and shit. And then maybe halfway through or near the end, that's when Sabo and the revolutionaries make their move and declare, ha-ha! You know, like, and make their decree of war against the Tenryubito. So, a lot of stuff going on in this chapter. What do you guys think of Green Bull? What do you think is Vegapunk's new invention? What do you guys think of the bubbles? What do you guys think of all the different kings and queens arriving on the island? What do you think about Sabo's infiltration? What do you think about Stelly? A lot of stuff to go through here, and I'll be making a few follow-up videos. This weekend's obviously pretty busy for me. In fact, even because we have rehearsal for that thing tonight, I'm going to try to get this edited and ready to go by then, but this might not get out until late tonight or early tomorrow morning. I apologize for that in advance. It's just the nature of the beast, but there'll be some follow-up videos about this chapter definitely to cover into the future. So, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend. Tekking101, signing out!